Welcome to Garage Sales Unhinged.
where the characters are as quirky as the finds.
I'm Julie.
And I'm Jake.
Join us as we dive into the wild world of garage sales, yard sales, estate sales, and anywhere secondhand sales are happening.
From bizarre bargains to hilarious haggles.
You won't believe the stories we've got lined up.
Let's get unhinged.
Hello and welcome to Garage Sales Unhinged, the only podcast with odds and ends in a box that you have to dig through, and we're not liable for any tetanus-related injuries as a result of you doing so. Hi, I'm Jake, and the other person that's going to say hi right now is Julie.
Hi, but we are very germy, so I still wouldn't recommend touching us.
Well, that's the great thing about the audio medium is that they can't. That's good for everybody.
Yeah, no touchies.
How are you?
I'm good. You know, right now we're in this, you and I both live in the upper regions of Texas, and it looks really nice and sunny and warm outside. It ain't, it's very cold. I mean, it
Yeah.
does look sunny. It is sunny, but I stepped outside earlier and it's cold. I don't like that.
The weather's been kind of a roller coaster.
Yeah, not a fun roller
sometime
coaster.
in February, it got into the 80s for like a day and a half,
Yeah.
and then it dropped back down into the 30s, and it's just been doing that whole thing. It's been weird.
This is now a weather podcast. I hope you have your tea and are falling asleep.
You know, if I wasn't feeling old while we were talking about garage sales, now that we've pivoted to weather,
Let's talk about our ailments next.
yeah,
How's your
how's
hip
that
and
knee doing,
knee?
Julie? Got any hard candy for our listeners?
Actually, I do have a throat lozenge in my mouth right now.
Amazing.
And
Okay,
actually,
I've got a question for you.
hold on, wait a minute. I do have hard candy. It's in the pantry. Our parents gave it to us for to me and my husband for Christmas. And I was like, that is old person candy. And my husband loves it. He's like, have you tried it? I was like, I haven't tried it in decades. He's like, well, you should try it. I tried a piece the other day. So good. I was like, okay, yeah, clearly I'm an old person.
Oh
It's fine.
no. You're like, I do enjoy John Denver.
Actually, I do.
Oh no.
Yeah, when I went to visit West Virginia. Yeah, I sang his song at the top of my lungs.
Oh no. Well, on the topic of things that might be aging, here's a question for you, Julie.
Okay.
What's something that you no longer use, but you keep it anyway and do not say your husband?
Hmm. Something I keep and I no longer use.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, does it count if I have the intention of using it again?
I don't know. Toss it out there. This is a safe space.
So something that I keep but I no longer use currently are my old running shoes. Because I think I'm going to wear them out whenever I do like work in the garden. And oh man, this is the old people episode.
Wow.
Whenever I tend to my garden, I was going to wear my old running shoes, but we're still coming out of winter, so I haven't actually gotten into the garden yet.
But you intend to use them. I mean, like, tell me something that you've got. If you don't have anything,
Oh my
totally
gosh.
fine.
No, I do.
Okay.
And I have no way to actually use it. I still have cassette tapes.
Oh, cool.
And for people that are let's say mid-20s and younger, a
Go to
cassette tape
hell for one.
a cassette tape is something that your dear Aunt Julie used to purchase to listen to New Kids on the Block.
Ooh. Yeah. Oh, and another important point that everyone should know about Julie, she also had a New Kids on the Block sheet set.
I also had a really big ass button. Like I think the button was the size of my face, and it was a red button and the heart on the inside. Like it had a picture of the guys on the inside. And yeah. But you know what? Again, old people episode. I know the New Kids on the Block have done a couple of tours and shows lately. No way in hell am I going to a show because that's way too many people. I'm not going.
And like, aren't like half of the members canceled in some way for some reason now? Like you go, you're like, this is kind of, I feel weird about supporting this. I don't know.
I don't think you could get canceled if you have an AARP card.
Apparently not. Yeah.
Uh,
So
why
like,
why'd you bring up my trauma?
well, because it's easy. It's all over the place. You had the New Kids on the Block sheet set. I think that the boys either I think our brother had a Star Wars sheet set,
Yes, he did.
which you could sell to grown men now for a lot of money, I'm sure. But there's no way we have them anymore.
That's also weird because like buy this sheet set that a young adolescent boy slept on.
Yeah, not even a fan of the series, really. Just more interested in the story behind the item. So, the topic of obsolescence, the process of something becoming obsolete, is what I want to talk about briefly. So, I'm asking you, like, think about things that you might have, but you don't really use. And it's not that you don't have use for them, it's that they can't be used. And I think cassette tapes is a pretty good answer. Even though you could go buy
Yeah.
a cassette player, they are out there. And believe it or not, for your Gen Zs and younger, cassettes are actually becoming more of a thing.
You know what? I don't e there's only one device in my house that we could actually play CDs on, and that's our Blu-ray player that we
Mhm.
have never used.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, we have one, but like my vehicle doesn't have a CD player.
Mm-mm.
My husband's vehicle doesn't have a CD player.
Most of your laptops now do not have
Yeah.
media players.
Yeah.
I I I was digging through a lot of stuff of mine here the other day, and I came across a box that had some CDs in it, and I was like, "Oh, sweet! It's a mixtape, and mixtape CD I made." I just wrote that it was a mixtape on there. I have no idea what's on it. I'm gonna check. Like, I was gonna go check it out. I was excited to, and I realized I've got no way to check it.
Yeah.
That really sucks.
But
I
also
also go ahead.
it's interesting that like cassettes, CDs have kind of gone the way of the dodo, but vinyl records making a huge comeback and they still make really good vinyl record players.
Oh yeah, and I'd argue that you'll see cassettes becoming more prevalent
I
for a
don't
few
know
reasons.
about that. One of the reasons that people like vinyl records is that the sound quality is different. A cassette is even a worse quality than what you're going to hear off of your computer. And that's where people, or, your the computer in your pocket, your phone. But also, I feel like kids these days, again, the old people
Wow.
reference, I feel like kids these days need to know the plight of trying to rewind a cassette tape with a pencil.
Oh yeah, when the tape comes out and you have to try to repair it and hope to God
Yeah.
it works. Yeah.
Like, I feel like there's probably a MacGyver episode out there that's where he had to do that, and today, no child would get that reference.
No. Yeah. You're right, Julie. All the kids and their MacGyver binging. That totally happens.
If you need me, I'll be back in 1987.
There's actually an art community that they're not chasing higher and higher fidelity. They're not chasing higher and higher quality. They're actually like the low quality is part of the point and part of the aesthetic.
Mhm.
So they are using cassettes. They're also using diskettes,
Oh, wow.
music stored on floppy disk,
Yeah.
which is another medium that is obsolete now. I found a box of floppy disks of old writing I did, and I want to find a way to access it because I'm sure it's horrible and embarrassing and not like, but I still want it.
So you can get an external floppy disk drive that you can plug into your laptop and it'll read it.
Right. Yeah. And you can do things that'll access, cassettes too. Point is here obsolescence. So, like, I was trying to brainstorm some other items that fall in this category, things that exist in the world, but not for their original purpose. So, like categories of things that used to be made, but the way, either that like there's no longer a need for that thing, or the way that people do this kind of thing has changed. And a lot of the objects associated with the quote unquote old way of making X, this thing, they're no longer needed. They're no longer produced. And you can only find them in resale situations. You cannot buy them retail. You can't find them, on Amazon or at Walmart or whatever like that. It's only in an estate or in somebody's garage or something like that. These are things that won't serve their original purpose. That
Okay.
they only have a repurpose, and often it's just for decoration or as like a memento of times past.
Yeah.
I was trying to think of things that work in this category, and yeah, some of the stuff I wrote down here, absolutely cassette tapes, floppy disks, ashtrays.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people are vaping these days. You don't need a vape tray,
And like if they're vaping at all.
right?
And the only reason from what I read, the only reason airplanes still offer ashtrays in some flights, not all of them, but in some flights, is when people are kind of like absent-minded and they still have a lit cigarette or something. They need a place to put it out
Yeah.
because you're not going to smoke while this is going on here. I actually bought at auction a green quartz ashtray that I'm holding up to the camera now for Julie to look at. It's just, it's a flat ashtray. The thing weighs like 10 pounds.
That is called a murder weapon.
It's called, yeah, yeah. It's a fantastic paperweight, but it looks cool. And
It should be like your pencil holder now. So instead of like putting your cigarette there, it just holds your pencil.
I totally did the other day. That's the slots are there and they hold a pen. It's
It
perfect.
can hold your pencils and your Skittles.
That's right, you old fart.
Are you planning a garage sale, yard sale, or estate sale and need some help? Look no further than Garage Sale Supply. They provide top-notch resources and expert advice to help you host the perfect sale. From pricing tips to promotional strategies, they've got you covered. Visit garagesalesupply.com and make your next sale a success.
So ashtrays, card catalogs. I mean, I can go through the list. There's some things on here that totally make sense. You're like, yep, agree. Obsolete. If it serves a purpose, it's not the original. It's just a sign of a bygone time.
So like I came up with one like a rotary phone.
Totally.
Like, yeah, they're still around. Companies don't really make them anymore to be used as a phone. It may be used as decor. Or people are actually taking rotary phones and altering them so that they actually work Bluetooth with their cell phone. And then like they can use it that way. But rotary phone's no longer a thing.
I feel like the category here is like stuff you would see on the wall of a Chili's.
Well, okay, so whenever you prompted me with this, I started making a list of stuff.
Okay.
So I had on here rotary phones. The other one I had on here, I'm going to put it in the same category, but I'm going to say two different things. One are like the white pages and a Rolodex.
I came up with both of those too.
I said it first. No.
Okay, fine.
But like there's times where I'll mention like Rolodex and younger people in my profession, they're like, what's that? I'm like,
Right.
oh my God. No,
I had you like
fired.
immediately go to HR.
Yeah.
They made me feel bad.
We're about to have fisticuffs. You better step away, child. Another thing I thought of, now granted, it may not be like a consumer type thing, but metal slides,
What?
a metal like playground slide.
I actually have fast food playgrounds on the list. Yeah.
Well, fast food playgrounds are still around. They're just all plastic.
Yes, and there's fewer of them, and they're
Yeah.
for like obvious reasons, right?
Yeah. Okay, this one is also not made anymore and not around for obvious reasons. Lawn darts.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
oh, apparently, one too many people got stabbed with them, so it was no longer a thing that people should own or use.
Right.
I never really
so this is
understood.
like lead-based toys, like
Well, I never really understood what was the purpose or what was the game of lawn darts? Like, just chunk it as hard as you could and
yeah,
dodge. I don't understand.
yeah. It's like we're trying to ease up on the household budget here. One of you's got to go. So
Survival of the fittest, kids.
right. If I can back up for a second, in doing some research on this topic, I did look at fast food playgrounds a bit. It's like,
Yeah.
well, where did they go? They're here and there, but they're not as all over the place as they used to be.
Yeah.
It's like, why is that? And part of it was, yeah, there's a liability issue sometimes,
Yeah.
but for the most part, it was a health issue. That a lot of those things are just teeming with bacteria for obvious reasons.
Right.
And you probably don't want that right next to where you're sitting and eating an open face sandwich, uh, or a closed face sandwich for that matter. But
Well, and honestly, I think I think of one fast food chain that still has them as Chick-fil-A, but a lot of times their playgrounds are separated by a glass
right,
wall. And I think that's probably how like they get past some of the health related issues. But also like you're not going to get sick playing on the Lord's playground. It's their pleasure. It's
right.
fine.
Look, herd immunity, and even if that's not true, isn't it still worth it for the waffle fries?
Yes, it absolutely worth it for the waffle fries and for the Chick-fil-A sauce.
The other thing I thought was interesting about the kind of the decline of the fast food playground is that some of those businesses are no longer interested in appealing to a younger demographic.
Yeah, because that younger demographic don't got money.
Right. And like the brand affinity has already been captured, and that affinity is among an older demographic, and they're not there for the playground. They just, they're there for other reasons. So you don't have to worry about providing things to other people. Like you can capture that younger demographic in other ways that aren't as risky. So not to go down that slide, so to speak, but yeah, phone books, phone booths,
Oh
actual
yeah.
paper road maps.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
Go
Sorry.
ahead.
So you mentioned ashtrays earlier.
Mhm.
While there's still vending machines, there's no longer cigarette vending machines.
Right.
Now, I mean, they're still out there, but whenever I see one, I'm like, oh wow, they still have one of these.
I have seen some of those repurposed to, provide other things, which is pretty damn cool because the actual mechanism for getting those out,
Yeah.
pull the knob, and it would give you, whatever's in it
Yeah.
is cool. Um, I'm just gonna run through these, but there was one I wanted to focus on, and there's like a twist on the question
Of
that I
course
want to
there
discuss
is.
a little bit. So things like fine china, um, checkbooks, uh, car dashboards.
There's still a car dashboard.
They're not what they used to be.
Well, no.
Uh, there used to be a rear one. I mean,
Yeah.
like, where else were you supposed to sleep during a long
Yeah.
trip? Um, so I'm gonna toss out some other ones that you might disagree with, but you're wrong. Business cards.
I still have business cards.
Again, you also have a closet full of hard candy. Um, various office supplies. As things become less and less paper, more and more digital. Are you going to see as many staplers or paper clips, etc.?
Or highlighters. Like,
Right.
I think about that. Yeah.
Stationary type stuff. So here's the follow-up question. When we
Okay.
talk about things becoming obsolete, often we think about material things, like actual objects. But what about places? Like if you were to think about obsolete places, and I don't mean just like, an abandoned place,
Right.
a place that is obsolete. It's not that it's not being used, it's that it doesn't serve its original purpose.
Hmm.
Um, so here's my kind of kicker question to this. What do you think the house of the future will look? I asked myself that question, and I want you to answer, but before you kind of go down this road, I want you to know kind of the thought process I went down
Okay.
initially. Because I go on internet and I ask internet, what will houses look like in the future? And internet told me the standard stupid stuff, the same stuff it would have told me 20, 30, 40 years ago.
What'd it say?
Oh, like here's all these bubble houses and here's all this really cool greenery between them. And here's everybody smiling and walking and all these futuristic materials and yada yada yada. And it odds are a lot of BS.
Yeah. Okay.
So what do you think houses will look like in the future?
Um, that's a good question. So one of the things, I think one of the things that will go away of the houses of the future is a formal dining room.
Ooh, good.
Not thank you. Thanks. I like the praise. Um, I don't think families I think formal dining rooms are mainly used for big holiday gatherings. And even then, do you really need a formal dining room taking up that kind of square footage in a house? Or could everyone just, make do with sitting in the living room and the kitchen and outside and all that stuff? Also, I think of like the house of the future. I think there's going to be less and less desire for carpet. And they're going to come up with flooring that if you have a second floor, third floor, whatever it may be, that the hardwood floor or the tile floor, they're going to put some kind of cushioning underneath it so you don't hear the footsteps down below.
That's a thing now.
Well, I can't afford that thing now. So
It doesn't exist for
it doesn't
me.
exist. Yeah.
Ergo, it does not exist. An idea I had around the idea of an obsolete place, and this is something that a lot of people have bemoaned about, the loss of third places. The concept being the first place is home, the second place that you spend a lot of time is work, and there's a lot of concern around the erasure of the third place. The third place you go for respite from home and work. The place you hang out, connect with other people, like
My
that is
side piece's house.
right.
I'm- That's weird to bring up on a podcast.
Because a lot of those third places are being kind of overtaken by social media. Uh, that it's not actually social. It's like the emphasis really should be on more media when you say social media. Um, that it's being taken over by those kind of digital kind of things.
Yeah.
Uh, I ask you about houses because like when people talk about the future of housing, they do talk about stuff like that. Like, oh, well, what are the materials?
Yeah.
What are the trappings that are going to be available?
Well, so and I'm also looking at it from a singular house. If we start talking about the future of housing, I think there's also about community. And I actually have a friend that he lives in a tiny home, but the tiny home community he lives in is that they have a lot of neighborhood community space to where they have a little putting green like in the middle of all these houses. They have a clubhouse to where like, hey, if you need to have a large gathering, you can do that there because not everyone's going to fit into your tiny house. So I also think the future of housing is going to a lot for and promote neighborhood and community and less stuff.
Yeah, you are kind of going where I'm
Am I
going.
doing good? Am I doing good?
And you're doing fantastic.
Oh my God. I
Have
think
a
I might
hard
have another
candy.
throat lozenger.
Yeah, I just joked that you should have another hard candy. Fantastic.
Well, it does soothe sore throats, so you never know.
So, yards. So I have this feeling that yards are going to become the obsolete thing.
Okay, so one of my hobbies, and probably my largest hobby, is I like to monetize stuff that shouldn't necessarily be monetized, but I like to monetize stuff. And I'm like, so if you're saying that yards are going to go away, let's say that because I have privilege and I have this nice big yard, can I start to section off plots of my yard for a community garden and then people pay me rent
It
for
really
their
depends on
vegetables?
it honestly depends on your zoning laws. What you're talking about is the practice of infilling. I'll talk about this really briefly, okay?
Okay.
Let me back up a little bit and I'll get to what you're describing because
Okay.
it is a thing. Housing zoning rules include things like minimum lot size. A lot of people, also complain about the outdated nature of a lot of zoning laws, and they want them updated for a lot of reasons. One of those reasons is to help address our current housing supply and affordability issues.
Hmm.
Uh, as those zoning laws do get addressed, odds are that lot sizes for housing aren't going to stay the same, and they're certainly not going to get larger. They're going to get smaller so they can fit more houses in less space. So either that or developers will get creative through methods like you're describing, infilling. There's actually a practice in some areas where they are getting creative around zoning laws in practices such as one called backyard infilling. For a lot where you've got a house and a pretty big backyard, where it's permitted, developers will come in and work with the homeowner, and the homeowner's signing on for this. And there's, a few different ways they could do it. They put up some money, they don't put up any money, but they are going to get some of the proceeds from the sale. Their backyard is turned into another lot, and there's going to be another house where their backyard used to be.
Yeah.
So what you just described, hey, can I essentially sublet my garden for a community garden? Probably.
So that's also how some of the real estate is done over in Italy. And one of my friends who's from Italy was telling us about it. If you're going to go over there and buy property, you really want to work with someone who understands the Italian real estate market, because you can essentially buy the house that, hey, this house is great. We want to buy it. We're going to have our home in Italy. But that house doesn't have the right of way to the driveway.
Mm.
And so then you're essentially paying rent to the person that owns the driveway so that you can actually get to your house.
Right. So the future of housing, rather than houses, the future of housing probably means, like, for new construction, and maybe in some cases where infilling is permitted, even in old houses, it's going to mean less space among and between houses.
Yeah.
So that means less yards. So that means yard equipment is probably going to be a category in the next, 20, 30 years that will become more obsolete.
Okay. So what if, did you ever read the book Ready Player One?
No, I'm familiar with it though.
Okay. Movie, blah. Book, fantastic. So in the book, they have in Oklahoma, they have this city where trailers, double wides, are stacked on top of each other,
Mhm.
and they're called the towers, right? And people live in the different trailers, but it's essentially a makeshift apartment complex. And if you can imagine, not very stable. And
In
I don't,
Whitney, Oklahoma, yeah.
yeah. And so part of me is going, and I've heard about it in other books and movies and stuff. If you can actually sell the airspace above your house, would you allow someone to build something in the space above you? If you already own, like, hey, I own my property, I own the land, but yeah, I'll sell you my space above me and you can build above me. I don't care.
There, there's some people that would, I'm sure.
I do care. No one come at me. No one build above me.
Right. But that those developments in our, the housing situation, and what seems likely to happen,
Mhm.
would mean that it might mean that things like a push mower, certainly a riding mower, uh, would only make sense if you're a landscaping company that is managing what you described with your friend with the tiny house that has a communal space.
Yeah.
That landscaping company would need that equipment to take care of that kind of space, but individual homeowners have no need for them because they don't have space for a yard anyway. So this is to say, hey, um, it might be like yard equipment might be the next Chili's wall art category. Uh,
I
like
mean, yeah, on it.
it's hard to
We,
get rid of a good old hoe.
you know, not going to argue with you on that one. We actually do not have a lawnmower because we have a team that comes out and does our yard every week. So, um, yeah, it's one of those things, like, if you have a riding lawnmower and you don't actually do your yard, do you just turn it into a racing lawnmower and call it a day?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's like you clearly cheaped out on getting the golf cart. because
Yeah.
that's what you really want. That's what you really want. Be true to yourself. Come on, be real. But no,
Officer,
like,
I'm just going to the grocery store on my lawnmower.
right. So I think what you describe is probably what you're going to see more of is and new developments, such as they are when we get around to them, um, will be there'll be single family homes. There'll be a lot more multifamily homes, but
Mhm.
those single family homes will be kind of master planned into shared space.
Yeah.
They won't have the same lot size, and so you're no more garden weasel, no more weed whacker, no more
Well,
leaf blower.
but I also think it does lend it to a community garden and going, hey, I like, I want to grow my own vegetables. I want to grow my own stuff. But it may be this section of the neighborhood is for the community garden and you are essentially renting out a section. I mean, it's the same thing that they do. I think in like, I have friends that live in Manhattan and they are part of a community garden. And, they're there every spring, summer, and they love that.
Yeah.
But they don't have the ability to have a garden in their apartment complex, but they could get into a plot just down the street.
Yeah. So I just thought it was an interesting topic to kind of look into the crystal ball a little bit, and kind of, and the whole spur of it is to think, well, what else might become obsolete? And I think it's going to be yard equipment.
Well, so I'm going to go back to your original question of like, what are some things that have become obsolete? Because I think if we go back to the Victorian era, so much stuff that they used back then, you're going, why? Why did they have that? One of the things, and I saw it, I follow a guy on the socials that he does metal detecting, and he was doing some metal detecting at an old compound, and he found this thing, and I'm like, what is that? And he does all the research and explains what it is. He found a Victorian era skirt lifter, and
Otherwise
it's
known as a pervert.
so for ladies because Victorian era skirts were very heavy. It's like a metal clasp that they could clasp onto their skirt, and it would help them hold up their skirt.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and I
Or
think
when they're
about that
crossing a
today.
muddy puddle,
Well, I think
and
about
one
that
of
today.
these rascals wasn't gentleman enough to lay down his coat on top of it.
Well, I think about that today of like, I don't think we need skirt lifters because most of our skirts are like mini skirts. So I'm like, no, we're good.
Right? Yeah. You guys are just giving away the ankle now.
Yeah. Um, and then the other thing from the Victorian era that is no longer in use is that they used arsenic to color clothing green.
Yep.
And so again, I think as Jacob's talking about, like, what are some things that could become obsolete? And we're like, "Ugh, lawn equipment's never going away, Jacob." I'm going, if you look back at the Victorian era and some of the crap that they came up with, and like, oh, it's so needed. No, it wasn't. And clearly we don't use it anymore.
I think that's why the phrase "mad as a hatter" showed up,
Yeah.
is because they were using, what was it, mercury in
Mercury.
haberdashery.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe
I
like,
mean, it's the
get
same
exposed
thing.
to
Like,
it and like lose their marbles because they've been chemically poisoning themselves at work. Yeah.
I mean, it's the same reason why we have lead abatement whenever you buy an older home because lead was part of insulation. It was also like in children's toys. It was
Mhm.
like, anyway, it's fine.
Yeah. So like,
We're
heads
learning.
up, if you've got a garage and you've got, garagey stuff in there, your shovels and your rakes and stuff like that.
Wait,
Uh,
Jake, are
but
you telling everyone to sell their lawn equipment?
no, I'm telling them to keep it, because in 80 years, your great grandkids are going to be able to cash in.
Are we going to have a lawn equipment museum?
I think we will, actually.
And now I'm
Or
wondering
at
if
least I
we
think
already
you'll
have
see
one.
more of it thrown on the walls of restaurants, because in lieu of a playground at that point in our de-evolution as a society, instead of the playground, we'll be welcome to just grab a tool off the wall and battle each other.
Well, I would like to point out that I think the UK is years ahead of us because
Is the
the
time difference that
British
much?
they have the British Lawnmower Museum. So there you go. If
Well,
you're looking for something to do for a spring break, may I recommend Southport Merseyside in northern England?
And then on that is a ringing endorsement from a genuine older person who has hard candy and doesn't take care of her own lawn.
Listen, just because I was born in the 1900s doesn't mean you get to talk to me like that.
Oh, don't get your very heavy skirt in a tangle.
Oh,
Oh,
if I had a skirt lifter.
yeah. Well, that's what I got. It's interesting. It's a bit of a rabbit hole adventure, but it's something I think is cool to think about. So, Julie, I hope you have a great week. Everybody, I hope you have a great week. Stay safe and don't be obsolete.
Bye.